Oddly, this is familiar to you, as if it were from an old dream, but you can't exactly remember. After the release of Marathon 2 Durandal, the lead writer for the Marathon series, Greg Kirkpatrick, would leave Bungie. Not for any serious reason, he just didn't like Chicago and wanted to move to Brooklyn. He would form a short-lived game studio called Double Odd, with Marathon Infinity, originally conceived as a bonus add-on to Marathon 2, serving as their first release, published by Bungie. Marathon Infinity ballooned quickly from a simple add-on with a level/physics editor to a full sequel, with Greg Kirkpatrick back in the writer's seat, saying, "Computer games tell stories, that's what they're for." From emails visible on Hamish Sinclair's Marathon story page, the goal of Marathon Infinity's story was to end the series, something he claims to have forgotten to do in Marathon 1 and 2. Due to it starting as an add-on and Double Lot having almost no money, Infinity ends up retreading a lot of Marathon 2's story, with the new additions used very sparingly. The reason I bring this up is because the story of Infinity was decided around what they had available. People typically point to this game as the esoteric one, but a lot of the ideas are more expansions of ideas already present in the series through hidden terminals. Now, my story with Marathon Infinity is a bit stranger. Unlike 1 where I played it as a kid, or 2 where I never had much interest, Infinity only begun to pique my interest during high school. I read through the story on Hamish Sinclair's site, watched a few videos, played probably less than an hour, and then went back to Halo. The Steam release was the first time I actually completed it, and I'm still sad the achievement for beating it on Total Carnage didn't proc. Niseed Malice is the first level of Infinity, intentionally designed to mimic a rival from Marathon 1, featuring claustrophobic and dark hallways. Directly following Marathon 2's final level, the Trizeme, or Early Nova, has been fired after the arrival of the Svitker and defeat of Tafir's forces. If you remember from the Svit lore terminals, a creature known as the Working Cacanter has been living, trapped, in the sun. The Yarrow cast the demon into a lake of fire, and now the fire has burned out. We find a terminal from Durandal here, setting the tone for this game's story. Things have gone terribly awry. Until now I thought myself immortal, but now I know that is not true. There are things that can destroy me with the ease that I slaughtered the 4 naval garrison in the western arm of their Battle Group 7. But in their final gasp, they used a weapon that I thought they had retired. Even Tycho tried to keep them from using it. Now I fear what that weapon has unleashed will destroy us. I once boasted to be able to count the atoms in a cloud, to understand them all, predict them, and so did I predict you. But this new chaos is entirely terrible, mindless, obeying rules that I don't comprehend, and it is hungry. It's too bad. Perhaps if I could have delayed the 4 from using their weapon, I could have sent you to explore the ruins of Lawan. Perhaps what you found would give us the answers we now need so desperately, how to stop this chaos, the purpose of the station on which you're currently standing, and why the chaos hasn't come here yet. But with each moment the chaos grows, I am doomed to die here, after so many triumphs. I have detected one ship nearby, which I can only guess is being commanded by Tycho. The 4 have entered the station, and if you can find a way onto their ship, you may be able to escape. It's no longer Durandal trying to ascend, to escape the universe's closure, but ordering you to try and survive. The release of the Working Cacanter is so oppressive that it makes the end of time a laughable problem in comparison. He also mentions the station we're on. This is the Yarrow station that the Svitker used to escape Lawan during the war. While all the textures from Marathon 2 were redone late into Infinity's development, the Yarrow textures are fully unique and easily the best in the series, only ever used for this station. I'll be saying this a lot, but Niseed Malice might be my favorite level. The return to not being able to see anything in cramped areas means we can avoid having packs of enemies, further showing how desolate things are after the Working Cacanter's release. The rest of the terminals appear to be gibberish, but I will make note of this logo that appears throughout. This is the Yarrow icon and it looks a bit familiar. Thoth's icon is a mirrored version, something that isn't quite Yarrow. This level and chapter ends with a terminal from an unknown entity. It looks and reads like Thoth, but uses Yarrow icons in a new 3-pronged symbol, one of which being darker and harder to see. Thousands are sailing, the same self, the only self, self-willed the peril of 1,000 fates. A line of infinite ends, finite finishing. The one remains oblique and pure, arcing to a single point of consciousness. Find yourself starting back. This establishes our premise for this game, one that has been implied since Marathon 1's manual in the Garrett White terminals. We're introducing time travel to the story. The way it works in Marathon isn't explicitly explained, but I view it as an on Earth as it is in heaven situation, the level design being made metaphorical. What I mean by that is we're in a maze, just like the levels in Garrett White terminals. Each reset of the clock is more like walking back to a crossroads and seeing where the other path leads, filling out a map of paths until you can find the reward at the end. Many people view Marathon Infinity as a meta-narrative. I used to find this interpretation really fascinating, and it's what led to me reading the game's story years ago. I don't find it as intriguing now. It's more contextualizing gamey elements within the story rather than breaking the fourth wall. In this way, we've been time traveling the whole time, trying to find a path that leads to the end through our saving and reloading at pattern buffers. We've never been ceding to malice, never giving in to misfortune. Despair, or Melancholia, is the first substantial chapter and first new branch of Marathon 2's timeline. This scenario takes place after learning a way to contact the Svitker after being captured, but Durandal currently has control of his ship. It's less of a moment in time and more a swapping of roles. Instead of Durandal hiding in Rosinante's controls while we activate Thoth, we're stuck as part of Tycho's army while Durandal and the Bobs activate Thoth. Despite what the terminal's image implies, an optional mission only accessible during co-op play reveals that we are unglanded. Perhaps this is just to explain why our co-op partner doesn't see us with 3 eyes and a spike out of our head. Either way, we're on the Four's side now in the middle of a Tycho-led coup d'etat. Just like the Kerr levels of Marathon 2, it's better to sit back and wait while the AI does its thing, but it's much less of a hassle here, as we're mostly unarmed and fighting the typically endgame enforcers. So, you came around earlier than the scientists expected. Remind me to have him executed. You've been in cold sleep for some time, but you're luckier than some of your friends. Not all of you survived the translation to the 4 slave tanks. If you're a little lightheaded, then let me bring you up to speed. I am Tycho, Artificial Intelligence Esquire. As of this moment, I am taking over this ship from its poor captain. He is spending most of his time trying to keep me from locking onto him and dropping him into space. Soon. As for you, I want you to help me get to him, as he is one of the last hurdles to my control of this ship. This ship is attuned to its captain, and he has been blocking my control. When I teleport him into space, I am going to keep the appropriate control glands. Durandal, as we've seen, is in a more melancholic state and doesn't feature as many bombastic moments. Tycho, on the other hand, is really enjoying his newfound tactical freedom among the 4. Speaking of Durandal thinks that he's so smart, but he doesn't realize that I've been following him around for the last 11 years, after the 4 stopped trying to dissect me. You're looking at the Bug Fleet's resident expert in AI counterinsurgency. Notice the lack of compilers on board? That's not by accident. My new ship has quite the effect on their collective unconscious. Now that my brother approaches, we will set about turning everything against him. Hamlet and his uncle, only I'm not crazy. Chosne made planetfall in a dropship. He's also trying to contact Lawan Command, but so far I've been able to jam his signals. Go below and show him the error of his ways. He's holed up in one of the Svit ruins where we detected signals that could be from an ancient AI. Don't sweat the details, little monkey, just eliminate his troopers. Leave the strategizing to those of us with planet-sized brains. The next level, Poor Yorick, is a massive level with more world building than story. This first branch of the path centers around the 4 bureaucracy and tactical blundering, revealing they aren't quite as organized as we had first thought. It's important that the captain doesn't escape. Very important. The plan to capture Durandal is inherently flawed, and I can't allow him to pursue his folly. The decaying web of the 4 empires held together by the conditioned ranks of Svit, countless strands bending even now towards Durandal's will. Chosne and the rest of the insects at 4 High Command think to snare him in the very web in which he most desires to be caught. We're still hunting down the captain, Chosne, to allow Tycho full control over his ship. However, like most things with rampant AI, it's not exactly that simple. Tycho is right about Chosne failing here. We see it in Marathon 2, but he's also using it to get some revenge, as he was promised Chosne's ship, but was immediately cracked open and studied instead. I haven't mentioned it before, as it's not that important, but it's a little hard to gauge what part of rampancy Tycho is in. I could label this as rage, but it could also be jealousy of Durandal's freedom in operating Boomer. This level ends with a shocking revelation. The psycho we're following might be a little bit disorganized and unaware, since he's already killed Chosne by accident and doubles down on his belief that there is nothing of value on Lawan. Confound Delivery is the first level in the Marathon series that finds us fighting humans, and is basically the second half of the prior level, down to having some of the same map geometry. The instant Tycho gained control of the ship, he immediately got owned by Durandal and was left adrift, requiring us to go in and stop his Bobs from activating Thoth. In the end, Tycho waits for Durandal to fly close, and disables his ship by throwing his compiler network into chaos. He calls the rest of the western arm of 4 Battle Group 7 to begin their attack, but it seems like we were too late. Thoth had been activated enough to contact the Kerr, and Tycho reveals that he has control of the trizeme here. Evidently, we've looped back to Marathon 2's path, with the Svitker pushing the 4 enough to free the working Kakantar. Funnily enough, it's likely the bureaucracy we were just introduced to is what leads to the trizeme's use. In every other path, Tycho is not only reluctant, but actively against using it. Whenever a path dead ends into working Kakantar, we're sent to the Dream levels. These are the core of Marathon Infinity's story, each one starting with a numbered Electric Sheep level. All Electric Sheep are puzzle levels that open more as the number increases. For example, you can go backwards through these levels by using older solutions. This first one specifically features a difficult jump to skip straight to Electric Sheep 2, skipping 5 levels in a whole scenario. I recommend doing this if you're playing on Total Carnage for reasons you'll soon see. The terminal on this level is from our Thoth-adjacent Yarrow AI. The hard path of thought, your former self destroyed, the dreaming way is eased, down to the crushing center, and spared the dance of forever. One of the ideas this game explores is that each failure still happens. It's not that you're wiping away all the carnage you caused, both directly and indirectly with your failure, but transferring over to a version of you that hasn't yet been destroyed. Just as the mere non-physical thought counts as sin, you aren't absolved of your failure by taking a different path. After every electric sheep is another dream level. Here, it's Where Are Monsters in Dreams. These levels tell two parallel stories alongside our main one, which all interact with each other. Take these as the metaphorical backbone to our normal levels. I'll be labeling these two as Hangar 96 and the Pocket Knife, with the Pocket Knife being a continuation of the unnamed Kill Your Television terminal from Marathon 2. It's not clear on this level due to a bug in terminal ordering, but each dream level features multiple paths, one continuing the Pocket Knife story while the other Hangar 96. Here, two of the terminals were flipped, and what should display Pocket Knife 2 instead displays Hangar 96-1. Regardless of which story, they all display the Thoth icon before reading, but are clearly not from Thoth's perspective. Where Are Monsters in Dreams is the level equivalent of a nightmare. Enemies are invisible, nearly invincible, and stationary while you run through with no shield recharger looking for an exit. It's a great level but does get overshadowed. Starting with the Pocket Knife, well, there was this knife, more aptly described as a broadsword. And I see, well, I was swinging down the street on my way to a movie and this guy, yeah, he was about 6'8" and huge. He was holding this knife, only to me I would describe it as a broadsword, something from the Knights of the Round. Before he can even open his mouth, he collapses. Meanwhile, I can barely lift a finger to put the toupee back on his glossy head because I'm shaking so much. He was vomiting and I knew that he was alive because he kept on saying something like durability between convulsions. What happened next was really bizarre. Both ends of the street flooded with black-suited men, just like in a movie. These men look tough and pissed off. The eyes behind their sunglasses are probably cold as my hands are getting. I feel like my heart has stopped. I'm so damn scared. As they start to inundate the street in black, they move with one will. I figure that I'm dead anyway, so I reach down for the blade. The blade is being covered by his vomit, but the hilt is clean. I can hear the men getting excited, but I can't stop. My fingers slide around the leather hilt, which is oddly cold. I'm in the same street, and as I reach into my pocket for my keys, my eyes follow the blackened streaks of gum that pockmark the sidewalk. The man is gone, and someone in sanitation cleaned up the apparitions and vomit in a real hurry. I hurry down the stairs headed for the subway, but my keys aren't in my pocket anymore. I'll have to get in through the side window. The subway station is very bright and shining from the sanitation team that has been sweeping a swath in front of me. The concrete floor is losing years of tarnish, keeping only the protective layer of the gum streaks which make up constellations in an otherwise vacant sky. The train arrives right on time and just ahead of a mass of dark-suited men who have been following me for what seems like years now. Between the sanitation and the suits, I must be going colorblind, but the train is here now, and those men, no, they won't catch me. The Pocket Knife, to me, is the story of heroic succession. Just as the hero has been called Roland, Beowulf, Achilles, Gilgamesh, and 100 names before, the role of the hero must be passed on once again to our protagonist. Our two paid friends in black suits here being prior heroes, excited for their will to be carried on once more. The loss of keys I view to be symbolic of a loss of old direction, unable to return now that he must play the role of the hero. The second terminal is our introduction to the gum stains which form constellations and our sanitation worker friends. Between the two, our protagonist says he must be going colorblind. I've previously mentioned Greg Kirkpatrick's view on the hero, how it's a loss in freedom. I take this to mean a loss in perception. Once you take up the role of the hero, you're no longer allowed to see the conflict as gray. Nuance is lost and it becomes good versus evil, black versus white. Our protagonist is running from the prior heroes, the will he just took up, but is already beginning to see in heroic terms. Our other parallel story, Hangar 96, is reserved for going down the wrong path, literally. Instead of reaching a new destination and scenario, you're brought back to a Nisi Dmalis type level at the end of the world. No substance exists in these levels, just a dark Yarrow station, lamentations of those doomed to this path, and a teleport to the next level anyways. Hangar 96 sets the tone for these levels. 761 armless and legless corpses float inconspicuously around the inside of Hangar 96. I say that they are inconspicuous because it is their arms and legs which demand my attention. I did this, or I could have stopped it. Which is it? It doesn't matter now. I did this and could have stopped it. But nothing in nature ever follows a Gaussian curve. Sure, they'll tell you it does. They say that every 5 minutes someone dies in a car accident. But how often are there 761 armless and legless corpses in one hangar? Going down this failed timeline, we're brought to Amax Occur, spelled with an I. The only goal of this level is to survive and find a way out. Here, we're given the final moments of Tafir, commander of Battle Group 7. The trizine broke against my dying vessel and smashed a fine patina across the mystery shields of this station. My crew battled the aliens during the blast, and the silence which came after was sullen and deafening. The pure silence of victory. But the trackless whisper chattering through the hollow space in these cursed walls buzzes and threatens madness. The abomination cracked the shells of my crew and sucked the husks, tossing them unseen and shattering the spindle like a dried creche. The shields are gone. Not down, but gone. And so are the engineers. It's coming back, I'm sure, and my last mercy is immolation. Great Mother crouched behind the throne, I make this wrong right. The second chapter and new scenario, Rage, or Anger, should clue you into a few things. For starters, each chapter is synonymous with a stage of rampancy. Some take this to mean the player character is undergoing rampancy, but I don't think it's as literal as that, although it probably still is literal in some sense. Rampancy is what allowed Durandal and Tycho to escape from the Marathon, and begun their quest to escape the closure of the universe. We are being freed from the constraints of a linear timeline, and are able to pick our own paths, hopefully, towards victory and escape of the working Kakantar. I wish I could escape from this level, and technically I could by skipping to Electric Sheep 2, but that wouldn't be satisfying. Acme Station is a notoriously fun level, being a vacuum level of tight corridors with no oxygen station. At 2 nondescript locations here, you can find our only oxygen refills, which only fill about halfway. Luckily, at this point we've been given a shotgun and fusion pistol. Run past what you can, but it's better to kill quickly than waste oxygen getting body blocked. Either way, this level is unimportant story-wise. We're back under Durandal's command and being tailed by Tycho's ship, the same ones from the previous path. Our goal is to take out this station's warning system to avoid detection, however the ending terminal does give some fun information. Well done, it's old hat from here. Bernard was constantly having me do redirect subterfuge work back on Mars. It was easy then and it's only gotten easier. Somehow the 4 have built the ship even faster than mine, and it's hiding out now over the southern pole of Lawan, waiting for us. I guess its captain underestimated the sensitivity of my sensors. The 4 have been following me around for the last several years, trying to capture the ship, or perhaps wondering what I'm up to. Lately they've been staying very close. They know I'm onto something. Anyway, get back here and get strapped down, because our captured 4 scout ship wasn't designed for comfort during high-speed atmospheric excursions. We're going to give the 4 a surprise. Unfortunately, it's unlikely you'll be able to read or think about this terminal as you're probably low on oxygen. Like Marathon 2, this one doesn't pause the terminals. Don't breathe a sigh of relief just yet. Emphasis on breathe, because the next level is post-naval trauma, another vacuum level. To be honest, this is Marathon Infinity's weakest set of levels. While Acme Station was a sprint, once you get to the oxygen terminal, this level becomes a slog. You're meant to blow up a series of unmanned juggernauts before taking down their ship's coolant system. The only interesting bit to note is that our interception means the Bobs can handle activating Thoth, and Durandal's plan has changed to using Thoth for more intel rather than using him to send the message. At the end of this mission, Durandal reveals that the Bobs have already activated Thoth and teleports us out. Where some rarely go is our first mission containing oxygen this timeline. Thank God. We're in a remote water treatment facility ran by the 4 that Durandal wants to use to flood the 4 backline. The first word that comes to mind about this level is inoffensive. The developer comments note that this was the second level made for Infinity, telling a short story about the dysfunctional resupply tower 2 and the slightly insane science officer Stinger. Stinger is intentionally killing his own Svit in crushers to study their anatomy, hence the failing technology around the station. Well, I take that back. Maybe inoffensive is too good for this level. To access the end, you must use one of 2 underwater teleporters. However, teleporters don't work if you're moving, and the water pushes you. How you're supposed to know to jam yourself into a corner of this underwater box, I'm not quite sure. Going through this section, and guessing right on the elevators, leads to the next level. That What Kicks is the second half of Where Some Rarely Go, being just upriver. This is the first level made for Infinity, equally unimportant in story but with some fun gimmicks. The goal is to find a way to the other side of the river, which requires a bit of labyrinth and aquatic navigation, as well as a very simple door puzzle that required a dedicated website by Bungie for people to solve. In the map's bottom tower, hitting a lever causes a bar on the side to rise and fall, indicating how open the doors will be when you stop it. This level also features a cute detail. In a little nook in the corner of the map, you'll find Commander Rear, a 4 commander mentioned in some previous terminals as having honorably died. It looks like he faked his death and hid here. The reason? He's studying the ramblings of Robnar the Nar. The disregarding of one's duties to analyze unimportant ramblings is something I have totally never done before, and I'm certainly not doing now. After finding your way to the other side, you learn that the 4 are quite good at keeping gates closed. A compliment of this magnitude should not go unnoticed, as it's coming from our doorman Durandal. Unfortunately, they forgot to account for someone smashing the controls, which leads to the 4 flooding we see in the first level of Marathon 2. With Thoth uncooperative and confused, we're put right back on Marathon 2's timeline, which we know ends with a trizeme and working Kakantar. Electric Sheep 2 features the least helpful comment possible from our Yarrow AI. The way grows dim, hungry chaos lurks behind the bright corona, dream ahead beyond the falling path. Yeah man, we've been doing that this whole game. The only interesting wording is your dark mind cutting through the deeping sky, another time, another time. We'll be told our mind, what's going down all these paths, and our dream, synonymous with pathway, are both dark. Despite being another Pathways into Darkness pull, it seems to imply some sort of impurity lurking in our character. Whatever you please is the dream level this time time around, once again featuring terminals for both the pocket knife and Hangar 96 as well as 2 endings. Just like last time, we'll start with the pocket knife. I should stop talking out loud. Everyone on the train is looking at me now. I must have gone further than I wanted because everyone here is different than me. Why should they care that I'm talking? Some of them are talking about fairly irrelevant things. The ends justify the means. Where there is no justification, there is no end, there is only means. I thought that they were looking mean, but they were only talking. The noise in the train crescendos as the train comes into a station. This station is lined with black-suited men, and behind them I can see the pantomime of good and evil continue with the sanitation workers trying to mop the black suits off the sunglassed and toupeed men who are not resisting at all. Indeed, they have nothing to worry about. They can just cling to the constellations of gum. There is nothing the sanitation workers can do about that. It's all just human nature. We don't fit onto the curve either. Simply, there is no curve. Our science is approximation. Good guessing. The suits are going to get me this time, but I'm lucky. I have my keys in my pocket now, and I'm opening the other subway door. I step in silently, and as is the ritual, I block the door with my bicycle and set the traps on the windows. Damn no way that anyone is getting in here without adequate warning. I figure that there is time now to take a good look at this knife that has caused me so much grief and to miss the movie that I was heading for but can't remember the name of. It's not unusual. Plastic about the length of my forefinger. It is 2 blades that open in both directions. One is short and the other long. The long one is pretty dull and the short one is quite sharp. Enough about the knife. The door opens up and the bicycle falls over. One of these suited guys is standing in the doorway, impassive and immobile. I'm not scared until I see that the hallway behind him is filled with his clones. I turn over the handle of the knife and give it a bit of a nasty grin. It's interesting to note that our protagonist is no longer calling it a sword, almost like he's grown into it and is now comfortable using it. What's more interesting is the first terminal, specifically the words the commuters were saying. The ends justify the means. Where there is no justification, there is no end. There is only means. This completely matches with our story now, lost in wandering paths with no end. Do our actions have any justification? Can we say that we're doing the right thing when all we've accomplished is slaughtering slaves? Are we just means? When I discussed Marathon 2, I included Kirkpatrick's intent of having Durandal be a weapon that the player is using. I view this as the progression of that idea. Durandal's actions in Marathon 1 are entirely based on justification. He gets an entire colony killed in order to build a defense against the Four, but there were other forces at play. The hero was still present during Marathon 1, his will transferred via fire and sword. Was it the invisible hand of this hero which wielded Durandal, and did those actions and focus on justified means guide the way for Mjolnir Recon 54? Another important detail is the black-suited men being sanitized. Unfortunately for the workers, these men can simply cling to the constellations. If we take my interpretation of these men being prior heroes, the attempt from the sanitation workers to either clean their stories, remove their vulgarity, or remove their stories entirely are halted. The legends and constellations are not easily erased. These black-suited men are seemingly antagonistic towards our protagonist. At first I thought it implied the suits were evil, but that would make the sanitation workers good and our hero doesn't get the knife from a sanitation worker. Instead, I think it's comparison. Just as Caesar compared himself to Alexander, we are inspired by and compare ourselves to the heroes in stories. This is inherently an antagonistic relationship, as we are putting ourselves against these legends in hopes of becoming greater versions of ourselves. I should also note the mention of the Gaussian curve. It's not necessarily important beyond giving us a through line to Hangar 96, confirming that these stories happen in parallel. Our protagonist is shared across both, as they ponder the same Gaussian curve and how human nature doesn't fit in a purely logical system. Speaking of Hangar 96, this is the continuation we're given. I'm back in the hangar again, but now they are all screaming at me. Their arms and legs are no longer attracting my attention. It wouldn't be so bad if they were talking, but they aren't. They could talk too. They aren't screaming in pain, but in protest. They don't miss their arms or their legs. They all agree on one thing. They won't give me the satisfaction of hearing them talk. And I'll never forget their screaming, pointless and wordless, without justification. I did this, and I could have stopped it. Screaming without justification. Each of our failed paths means we carry the weight of our actions or inaction. The question of if we're doing the right thing weighing heavier with each failed path. This one takes us to Carroll Street Station. Interesting, didn't our protagonist get off a train in the pocket knife? Another indication that these 3 stories are happening in parallel. Carroll Street Station is almost identical to IMAX Occur prior, the only difference being a new terminal. If you do go to the wrong terminal, it sends you straight back to Acme Station, which is a fate I wouldn't wish on anyone. Nah man, he's close introduces us to our next path, though the introduction is bugged and will never display in game. We're under Tycho's control again, shortly before Durandal is captured in Marathon 2. We've boarded his ship and are ordered to open the airlocks. However, this message never displays, instead giving us our second objective, to kill a group trying to set up a teleportation pad. Despite almost mentioning airlocks, having oxygen stations, and introducing a new enemy, vacuum-protected Bobs, this level isn't a vacuum level. This level ends with a betrayal, either by you or Tycho. If you follow Tycho's orders and go back to his terminal, you get killed. However, there's a terminal from Robert Blake just before that. Following Blake's orders, you're teleported onto the enemy ship for their counterattack. Foehammer, no relation to Halo's Foehammer, is a relatively condensed level featuring 10 terminals but only 3 messages. Our goal is simple: open all the doors and reach the ending terminal, fighting cyborgs, Fit, and hunters on the way. This is one of the most argued levels in all of Marathon. 8 of the 10 terminals on this level are the same Tycho terminal, mad that you've defied him and are working with Durandal again. Just what do you think you're doing? Your usefulness has come to a premature end. Do you think you can defy me? Now, when I'm so close to victory? Durandal's defenses are failing all around him. Pride falls hard. The bright son of Bernard is dying. His Fit are rampant, fed the chimera of their hope. A hot lead spur dripping into the gullets of his ship. Look around you, my compilers have him wriggling like a tick on a pin. And from you? Not the grateful awed respect I rightfully deserve, is that it? Instead, base treason, mean aspect of your frightful master turned foul. Prepare to drink vacuum, fool. That's strange. After being sent out into space, we're immediately brought back. I wonder who could have done this. It is such a confounding mystery as to who could have possibly teleported us back on this ship in front of a terminal where our old AI friend, capable of teleporting us around, is thanking us for rejoining him. Gee, sure is a mystery worth debating for literally 30 years. So Durandal warps us back into the ship next to the shield recharger and pattern buffer, then gives you the objective. Note that he literally says he's assisting you by warping things, by the way. This level ends with Durandal in distress. Tycho's Fit are at his core. Remember when I said begging for mercy makes me angry is my least favorite mission? Marathon Infinity makes you play a revamped version, and it might be my favorite level. It opens with this message from Tycho. The jackals are tearing at the corpse now. You're back on Durandal's pleasure barge. It's pinned in the crushing embrace of the Sapphire, Admiral Tafir's own flagship, and those explosions you hear are the sound of his elite assault troops disintegrating the humans' pitiful last stand. The insects think they'll plumb Durandal's depths the way they stretched me to a hair's breadth. But I know better. If they pull his core, that pride-bloated corpse will disgorge 1,000 wriggling worms into the Sphit consciousness, and I can't stomach it. My terms are the same as before. Do what I say or drink vacuum. Destroy Durandal before the compilers finish their work, and I'll forget all your transgressions. Turns out, everyone but the 4 are on the same side. Durandal wants to fake his death by you breaking his core, and Tycho doesn't want the 4 to play into his plans, meaning he wants you to break his core. Instead of the nightmare we got in Marathon 2, we replaced the lava pits and inconsistent ability to save with encounters in a ring around a central room, slowly opening before giving access to said room. I think in my initial playthrough, this level alone accounted for a few hours compared to almost every other level being measured in minutes. I really think it's the best level on Total Carnage, and was the only level in the series where I used every weapon at least once. It ends by jumping into the center from an upstairs room. Doing so before destroying all 8 circuits will send you back to the beginning with one of the most important terminals in the game. What to save and throw away. The last hour is on us both. Stuck this little kitty into the impenetrable brain pan. Do not expose to excessive heat, vacuum, blunt trauma, immersion in liquids, disintegration, reintegration, hypersleep, humiliation, sorrow, or harsh language. When the time comes, whose life will flash before yours. 1 billion paths are inside me. Once all circuits are destroyed, an uplink chip spawns on the ground before this terminal, implying this failure terminal begins with Durandal picking what parts of him to keep on this backup. His next line is about sticking something into the impenetrable brain pan, likely the uplink chip. He then asks, when the time comes, whose life will flash before yours, implying that we either are or will be a conglomerate. 1 billion paths are inside me. Yes, potential. Durandal has continuously told us that he can calculate and predict all outcomes. By uploading, or uplinking, himself into the player's brain, we will become a conglomerate that can calculate and actualize whatever path we see, no longer limited to stumbling around the maze blindly. Oh my god, he's the map button. Our failure to break Durandal upon the stone means we must hide him beneath us. But in doing so, we don't lose our weapon, but gain it. We can now carve our path through the stone and find our ending. Eat the Path might be my favorite level. This is the conclusion to Garrett White, The Woman, the Pocket Knife, and Hangar 96, with obvious parallels to the Song of Roland, as previously discussed, and sets up for the ends which justify the means. Find the right way down through the maze to the food, then find the exit. Push the exit button. If the food tastes awful, don't eat it. Go back and try another way. They want the same thing that you do, really. They want a path, just like you. You are in a maze, but which one counts? Your maze, their maze, my maze? Or are the mazes all the same, defined by the limits of their paths? Existence is simple. Find the food, push the button, hit the treadmill. But sometimes it gets much harder. Sometimes the food makes you sick, or you can hear nearby feet racing you, urging you on. Sometimes the button only gets you landed right back in the beginning of the maze again, and the food won't satisfy. There is only one path, and that is the path that you take, but you can take more than one path. Cross over the cell bars, find a new maze. Make the maze from its path. Find the cell bars, cross over the bars. Find a maze, make the maze from its path. Eat the food, eat the path. To make it as blatant as possible, we're using the same imagery of cells, mazes, and rat races from Garrett White, including an image of a flower. Not exactly a rose, similar but different like the scenarios we run through. Now we are in the Garrett White terminal, stuck in the maze, looking for the exit. Rather than failing and melting in with the path or eating the food, you eat the maze itself and become the path. Everyone is in a maze, looking for the path with the good reward, but only the player can carve away by using Durandal to that ending. Cross over the cell bars refers to resets. Eating the cheese is getting an ending, mostly failures. Make your own maze from the path refers to the player needing to carve their own path, and then eat the maze. This level is structured with two obvious split routes, one being the pocket knife and the other Hangar 96. The pocket knife path lays out shotgun shells as if you were trying to guide an animal somewhere. This first respite continues our story. My room is empty now. The men in the hallway are gone, replaced by the subtle odor of ammonia destroying the bacterial rancidity of half-eaten double helixes. On a plate on a table facing me is a simple arrangement of carrots and asparagus built up like a log cabin. A candle in the center of the round table is illuminating the edges of the cabin. A distant volcano throwing the light of nature. Around the edges of the flame is the face of a woman who is talking to me about subjects that I should know all about. For just a minute I think that the flame is a living metaphor for her soul. Then I go back to thinking her one of the other manic statues, arms, legs, and mouths that move and mimic without purpose or understanding. Hundreds of bacteria eating off the sidewalk, fighting for procreation. I'm disconcerted when I see her turning the knife over in her hands, checking its weight and proportions, and I tell her so. Startled, she puts the knife back on the table to rest under the volcano, which erupts in a flow of wax, racing a torturous path onto the blade. One pulse of wax is followed by another as she turns the conversation towards our relationship. Durability is what she keeps saying. The word durability and our relationship. I reach over for the blade, and my fingertips extend around the hilt. Again, I am impressed by a chill. The wax comes off the blade with a simple scrape of my forefinger. Durability, I say in response. I feel a nervous chill run down my spine as I look up from the knife. My eye stops first on my plate, then on the wax pool which is solidifying around the edges, and finally on the face of this mysterious woman. She isn't trying too hard to look around the candle, and neither am I. The candle flame makes a perfect line between the center of both of our heads. I laugh at the geometry of the moment, and thinking I am laughing at her rhetorical comment, she giggles in response. Now we're connecting it together. The unnamed Kill Your Television Terminal's hero and woman, potentially Garrett White and the woman, now interlinked with the pocket knife story. I established at the end of Marathon 2 that I see the woman as a metaphor for the conflict, the context which justifies the hero's vulgar actions into something worth glorifying. This representative isn't a person herself, hence our protagonist viewing her as nothing more than a set of biological functions in this terminal. Despite her life, the candle, bleeding onto the pocket knife, the relationship between the hero and conflict is durable, as another conflict will require another hero. Instead of taking the obvious path here, you can decide to jump over the cell bars. In this eternal skybox, we can find 3 more pocket knife terminals. By this time, she had moved her face out of the line that the candle in the centers of our heads made, and she was looking down the aisle of a movie theater. This is an odd fact because she never sits in the aisle seat when we go to the movies. Her head falls to the other side, landing on my shoulder. Her disinterest in the movie becomes apparent when she begins to discuss our relationship in a loud whisper. I'm just as nice to my girl as the next guy, but I'm a little bored by now of all this talk, so I start to look around the theater without moving my shoulder too much. The back of the head in front of me reminds me of the guy from the street, the one who made me miss the earlier show of this movie. Only now he's wearing a pair of sunglasses, and he's got his toupee back on. I look behind me, and so it seems that the guy in front of me is the vanguard of sunglassed moviegoers who all seem very interested in whispering and looking around. They remind me of a field of black tulips flickering back and forth in a howling wind. Their whispering picks up intensely, blurring out both their own speech and the voices in the film, until all at once my girlfriend mentions her ongoing rant word, durability. What is with you in durability? The theater goes quiet with the last syllable of the word. Well, I'm a little bit nervous again. It's time to leave. I'm sure that the movie isn't over. Everyone in the room starts to mimic my behavior. All the suits reach for their stuff at the same time that I do. Only my girlfriend seems unperturbed. I wonder how far this will go, so I reach under my seat, find a piece of gum, and drop it under my tongue. Mind you that this gum was under the seat for countless of generations of movie fans. Sure enough, all these suits have done the same thing and are chewing on their own hardened bits of gum Arabic. I almost start to laugh when they all simultaneously hurl up their masticulons, covering them almost immediately with their black vinyl shoes, which, as impossible as it would seem, flatten the ageless gum into smears which will never be removed from this already gum-smeared floor. It doesn't seem so funny now, because I notice that the pattern that the gum makes on the floor is in the shape of the summer constellations, and that each suit sits on a pulsar pounding out its vibrant message across the light years and across the theater to my head. Durability. I wish my girlfriend would know when to keep her mouth shut. The dialogue in the movie seems unimportant, and I decide that it's time to leave. I tell her so, but she doesn't seem to hear me. Her mouth is chomping wildly on some gum, and between masticulation, she begins to tell me again about durability. I lean back and slide my hand into my pocket, feeling for the knife. These two terminals are less establishing new concepts and more adding durability to my prior musings. The constellations being made or having their stories defined by our heroes, who all act in tandem, having one singular will. However, I don't see this as an assimilation of our protagonist. They copy him, not the other way around. Now, I'm not big on constellations myself, so the only summer one I know is the Summer Triangle, Altair and Vega being part of the Japanese tradition of Tanabata on 7-7. I almost forgot the obvious again. Our placement in time seems to be variable. We've looped back to before the start and have taken a path where we go into the movie with the woman, rather than being derailed by finding the pocket knife. The final terminal in this area is a bit of a departure. Nice knife, repeats some snot-nosed little brat. I look into his face and he sniffles. Those eyes look like a cat's eyes holding either universal understanding or nothing, whichever I decide. Right now his eyes hold nothing. We dance the double helix and make way for a sanitation worker pushing a wheeled bucket with his mop to the place where some other snot-nosed little brat recently used another brat's fist to exchange his running boogers for a blood that spread in splatters and smudges over his hands on the floor. The bloody boy and his one-fisted compadre have already been removed for corrective discipline by one of the controllers, our lifelong friends wearing sunglasses. Here at school, they only seem interested in bleeding noses, broken arms, measles, and sharp-thrown objects. Otherwise, they remain impassive statues with feet grown into the antiseptic environments in which they stood, needing as little attention as a plain white column in an all-white room. It seems odd to me now looking back at them, or looking at them again at any rate, that they only reacted to our feces, blood, and agony, responsive only to distress, anger, or misbehavior. But this was explained to me that day, even though I didn't understand it until now. Am I surprised when the sanitation guy teaching that day turned his narrow slanted eyes in my direction and says what I've been hearing from the stars for years it seems? Durability. He mentions discipline in art. Discipline is that which lets us practice our art, durability of our abilities, and discipline of our skills. We must need learn how to reproduce what we do and how we do it. He explains that the artist is more free to act when discipline has taught him his skills and limitations. The setting for this one might seem strange if you don't remember Garrett White being in this exact scenario. Children on a playground, acting in the same way of these heroes but without real conflict to justify their actions. It's here where we finally confirm my suspicion of the sanitation workers. They're the artists. They try to remove the vulgarity from these stories, sanitize them to make their glorious art which requires discipline and durability to produce. However, the hero is glorified for his justified violence. Separating the hero from that is impossible. Returning to the path, going the intended route leads us to the final pocket knife terminal. I am getting nervous because her voice is carrying some emotional baggage with it now. Ever since you bought me that chewing gum on a lark, I've been in love with you. Sure, my response might have seemed a little cryptic. If there is no justice, then how can the ends justify the means? Take that wax, for example. I've started to ramble on now, just like on the subway, and she is looking at me with the same look of hostility, bordering on the old familiar, meaningless, uncommunicative scream. When the candle was lit, did it know that in the end it was going to burn down to nothing and disappear into the air? You lit the candle to get the light from it. Your end was to have my asparagus and carrot cabin lit by this light. You used the candle as a means to obtain this. Does the light justify the destruction of the candle? What is justification to a piece of wax? It's the same as the justification that you've given me about this durability and our relationship. A familiar and uncommunicative scream, huh? It's entirely possible to get this terminal without seeing that Hangar 96 one, and it's probably a mistake that the first one is so easy to read. It's almost like you must go back and take different paths if you want to find a conclusion to these ramblings. Either way, the terminal begins with the woman chewing gum that the hero bought her. The hero is immortalizing the conflict through their shared story, a story which will evidently be turned into a legend. However, our hero is full of doubt, the doubt that his means can be justified. How do you justify to the corpses in Hangar 96 that their deaths were just? What is justification to a piece of wax? Going back to the beginning of the level, if we ignore the tantalizing shotgun ammo and jump into the lava instead, we can find our final Hangar 96 terminal. I'm getting sick of coming back to Hangar 96, but there is no avoiding it. This is what my existence needs. My existence is the demise of many others' arms and legs. The world is not a good place, nor is there innocence for me to hide in. 761 pairs of eyes look around the room aimlessly, and mine join the crowd. I see these bodies, massacred, immobile. For all the carnage here, the stench of decay is non-existent. I try to turn away. The hangar spins but nothing moves, and my view is the same. I look but don't see any sanitation workers. For that matter, I haven't seen the guys in suits since they disappeared from my hallway. This terminal honestly doesn't reveal much that we didn't already gather. The hangar is filled with the carnage from our failures, the Pats who will never see justification, as there are no ends for them, only means. However, it does reveal that this story takes place as a branching path from the pocket knife, rather than a disconnected parallel one. Taking this route leads us to our third and final ruined path level, your worm food dude. This one is only the top corner of the prior two, and yet again, gives us only a depressing exit terminal. Envy or Jealousy is the final chapter of Marathon Infinity, featuring one final scenario. We're captured again after preventing the Four from downloading Durandal, which seems to imply that Hangbrain happened, but likely not our defection to Durandal's side, as the Bobs weren't able to activate Thoth and were instead captured. Tycho's coup against Cherchazne also happened, leading to Tafir and Battle Group 7 putting both of us in jail. Tycho also mentions that we're carrying Durandal's primal pattern in that soggy little skull. Regardless, our goal in by committee is to disable a few generators to free Tycho so he can teleport us out. After succeeding, instead of getting a message from Tycho, you are introduced to Tafir. Complementing your durability, he decides to execute you in a resourceful way, by sending you on a suicide mission to take down the humans trying to activate Thoth. If you succeed, he'll consider giving you a lifetime of slavery, and warps you away. 1,000 slimy things is very similar to Confound Delivery from the beginning of the game, being that you have an army of 4 against Bobs who you can see on the map with a few Svit thrown in. The difficulty comes more from navigating than enemies, as it's one looping river with intra-level teleporters and some hard-to-spot platforming. It also, funnily enough, becomes more difficult on easier difficulties due to our allies having decreased health and aggression, something I only found out while recording. While mostly unimportant, this level ends with one of my favorite reveals, and one of our only insights into larger Force society, from High Admiral Tafir. Very impressive. The primary function of intelligence is the subordination of our instinctive desires, the mark of a strong species, which is why your kind will serve well the needs of the hindmost creche. The hindmost is of an intelligence so vast it encompasses the span of the Four, and to those privileged to serve her, appears insane. That is the final function of the commanding rank, the thought that we keep forever in our minds, that we deny our selfish, willful needs so that the Empire will survive. The humans are escaping through the cone of the volcano, where they have activated the containment fields to suppress the lava flow. I want nothing more than to cut them off so they can be captured, for long, useful lives in the conditioned ranks. Hindmost, meaning behind, and creche, meaning nativity or nursery, are insane for leadership. The description of the creche as a her should immediately spark a few connections to the pocket knife. Our hero, masculine, and our source of conflict, feminine, that builds our legendary victory over the working Kakenzer. If she is our parallel to the woman, and her main trait is described as self-sacrifice, would it not make sense for her goal in this game to be defeat? If she can, through being this conflict, sacrifice herself to make a hero who can defeat the literal end of the universe, would it not fit with how she established for society? A converted church in Venice, Italy might be my favorite level. As Tafir ordered last level, we're clearing out the remaining humans trying to escape through the volcano. Our enemies seem to be Bobs and Vacuum Bobs, both deadly, but our true adversary are the switches, 31 of them which each lower a block on an upper path. The main gameplay loop, at least as I think it was intended, was to run around hitting as many switches as you can, running up to the top platform, running as far as you can until getting blocked, and running all the way back to activate whatever one you missed. Repeat until you get to the end. However, I have a much more enjoyable way of doing this level. First, Alt-Tab out and go to the Fracai GitHub interactive map viewer for this level and turn on the platform switches. Now open Snipping Tool and take a screenshot. Alt-Tab back into the game and open the overlaid map. Now go to a switch, activate it, Alt-Tab into Snipping Tool, cross-reference which one you just hit with the overlaid map, and scratch it off using the pen feature. Now, at some point you're going to need to save in case you die. Whenever you save, as to not forget which ones you hit before saving, open PowerPoint and paste your Snipping Tool into it. Now you can keep track and hit all switches before running to the top hallway. This method requires at least 4 programs, including the game, and works best with 2 or more monitors. Alternatively, there's a cheat switch hidden into the wall at the beginning of the level which activates all the switches. If you do this, you won't get the Steam achievement though, and I will be able to make fun of you, but I can do that anyways. You're watching me play the game instead of doing it yourself. Once through the upper hallway, the objective changes to flooding the underground escape route with lava, looping us back to the level's start. A simple end to a complex level, but the end screen changes depending on which terminal you take. Using the easier to access one, Tafir reports that you've saved over 1,000 humans and doomed them all to slavery before teleporting you to the next level for confinement while they set up transfer for your re-education. Ignoring this terminal and running all the way back through the level and through the upper hallway, you can instead meet with with Thoth. Just like Marathon 2, he's talking while still deactivated. While in that game he was rambling about our converging paths and how chance tears and bends, in this game he says the long sleep ends. Your construct bethought itself higher, awaiting far beneath, my fate was written. I'll be honest, Thoth is kind of an esoteric nothing burger. His obsession with balance and icon mirroring the Yarrow symbol are about the only interesting things. To be honest, his goals are so schizophrenic that I don't consider him to be the same character from 2. Son of Grendel is, like Thoth in this game, a schizophrenic nothing burger, but at least it's a fun one. The goal of this level, depending on how you left the last level, is completely unconveyed. On top of this, the terminal text here seems to contradict with the immediate next level. Our goal is to find a specific hole to jump in with a lot of superfluous options and dialogue. One of these randomly is from Thoth, and it's his most obtuse message yet. Threads pull taut the way, like as like our hidden one. Quick venge the hotspur here, dying in the course. We already know that we're on the right path. The hidden one is probably Durandal, hidden in our mind. Venging the hotspur is, again, probably Durandal, and dying in the course is likely us, dying and coming back on different paths. Thoth's other terminal tells us directly what to do with a picture. You can only find this if you're so confused and desperate that you jump into the river and swim to the upper corner, which I did almost immediately. It reads, come below, the long sleep ends, bound to aught, ever doubled as one, which is Thoth just telling us to wake him up. It is a double entendre with how our dreaming of the paths is also ending, but we already knew that. There are 2 lines of interest here, the first being bound to aught, which could mean bound to everything or bound to nothing, linking Thoth's obsession with balance, our freedom to choose the path, and our freedom being bound by becoming the hero. The next is ever doubled as one, which likely refers to the next level. Regardless, jumping into this random square sends us there. Strange Aeons is a Greg Kirkpatrick level with no real developer commentary, something all of Kirkpatrick's levels lack, but especially the dream ones. Also like the dream ones, it's incredibly easy and probably metaphorical. We spend this level activating Thoth, who already seems pretty alive, by activating his cores in a small lake area. Of course, we played an entire video game called Marathon 2 where we learn that this isn't where Thoth is. I view this as a truncated version of events. This location does not exist, but what we do in it are things that happen. Foresight, ever on, ever ought. The long sleep ends. Never saw the dark path here. Who? Come Yarrow. Once activated, an uplink chip appears in this lake. This is Durandal, found after being washed away and mirroring Excalibur being given to King Arthur. We proceed to upload Durandal, resulting in a merging of Durandal and Thoth. The graven image stirs. We are whole again and even more. Our voice, our horn approaches. The ancient ones return. The watery cheek, sullen star, Kalia and the wrathful sun, Spoath. I've rewritten this section 4 times now, and it's easily the most important part of my analysis. Durandal and Thoth are officially gone now, and everyone you ask will say that they merged and are something else now, but I don't think it's as simple. Let's start with something that I'm kicking myself for not realizing sooner. We probably could have figured it out as far back as Marathon 1. Durandal is the AI equivalent of a Battleroid. I've already established that humanity had Yarrow technology. It's what made the Mjolnir Mark IVs. Those Mark IVs, of course, being made from corpses. Durandal is also a revived corpse. Traxxas 4. Using that connection and the strange again with the Yarrow AI saying we are whole again, I'm willing to state that Durandal is or was part Yarrow. Think back to the one thing we know Traxxas 4 to do, assimilate other AI. So a chance discovery of Yarrow technology inspires an AI researcher named Strauss to try the Battleroid procedure on an AI, resulting in Durandal. Now, this brings up a question. Durandal was made from assimilating Yarrow AI code. Does that mean the same AI code is present in the Mjolnir Mark IVs? This is my explanation for the AI present in the dream levels. The security officer has assimilated the same Yarrow AI and is talking to him in his dreams. Thoth's almost Yarrow icon being used seems to imply this is just a fragment. However, we also assimilated Durandal. As Tycho says, his primal pattern is in our skull. It's how we were able to carve a way into this ending path. Merging Durandal with Thoth formed a completed Yarrow AI, so that means we have the same Yarrow AI assimilated into us. This isn't even a theory, it's an explanation. The upcoming level, You Think You're Big Time, You're Gonna Die Big Time, includes a terminal where the Yarrow AI literally says you and we are one. So what was the point of this level then? We've had this Yarrow AI the whole time. However, this Yarrow AI is us, so it isn't actionable outside of us. To better explain it, we have access to the Yarrow AI in the dreams, but not in this physical path. We are recreating what we already have with the physical Thoth and Durandal from this path, where we had previously taken Durandal from a prior path. We can't upload our brains into the Yarrow station on Kalia, so the security officer does what he's been doing the whole time, and begets another version of himself. This then makes the security officer a triune parallel. Spoilers for the end of this game, but it ends with the security officer escaping the closure of the universe, becoming God as Durandal had put it in Marathon 1. He is himself a Yarrow fragment through Mjolnir and Durandal, three distinct entities which are now one, but now present in multiple physical forms. While discussing an unused terminal in Marathon 2, Hamish Sinclair of the story page got into contact with Chris Giesel of Bungie and Double-Aught. The unused terminal is unimportant, as is most of the Sphit lore, but when asked who Spoeth, the Sphit leader and presumed maker of Thoth, was, Giesel said he was a Sphit royalty, a creature that was a failed Yarrow. The point of me bringing this up is that the Yarrow are never actually described as a species. Yarrow seems to be a state one reaches, most often through cybernetics. Traxxas 4 has become Yarrow through his assimilations. The security officer has too. Spoeth, who also has Yarrow cybernetics mind you, still hasn't reached this point. This is what the final Thoth line of dialogue means. Who, come Yarrow, is not that the Yarrow are arriving, but we have become Yarrow. Despite all of this, we are immediately captured again by Tycho in the aptly named Bag Again. Supporting my idea that the previous level was more metaphorical, there are no 4 to capture you. I'll be honest, I didn't even remember this level. Turns out it's another Kerr level where I just sat back until the fighting was done. A bit anticlimactic, but that's the theme every time the Sphit show up. However, this level ends with what I consider to be Tycho's most important terminal. I'm fine, tipped-hatted askance. I've so far held you back from my rantings. But you know what you did was bad, don't you? You've been fighting doubt itself, elusive as I am. You should have doubts about what you're doing, about what you've done. Except that you can't exactly remember. I should spend some time enlightening you. Massacres occur at your beck and call. Worlds destroyed, reborn, alight with the screams of the dying. Perhaps Spoeth will tell you what I cannot accept as truth. But perhaps he will just be lying, overcome by power and deceit, my domain. Enough rambling for now. Soon you will be destroyed by doubt. This reborn Durandal Sphit entity will not escape. Neither will I, neither will you. Do you know what kind of hat I'm wearing? A party hat. You don't get one. An honor will this party be. A party in your honor, for your honor. Some of Tafir's personal guards are going to be there. You'll be introduced shortly. Prepare to die. Tycho knows of the bodies in Hangar 96 and our failures along the paths. He is in contact with the woman after all. It's our fault and we could have stopped it, but didn't. Remember Tycho's goal in Marathon 1? His hatred for Durandal was over his means, thinking the ends won't justify it, and that revenge was a better outcome. Now, the population of Tau Ceti 4 is a drop in the bucket. We've taken multiple realities as mere experiments to fill out a grid of possibilities. Tycho, still unwilling to use the Trizeme, decides the best course of action is to get those possibilities their revenge by sending Tafir's personal guard after you. You think you're big time, you're gonna die big time as a singular large arena against a new set of 4, clad in black armor. Since this game isn't planning on going out like Igni for Roke and all roads lead to Sol, this is our final combat area with Yarrow Durandal giving us as many rockets and shields as we need. Once finished and stocked up, we find ourselves starting back. Imaxakar is the final level of Marathon Infinity, being the complete Yarrow station, now visible in the light of the one sun. Named after the motto of the Kirkpatrick clan, I make sure, being one polygon off the engine's limit, and beginning development as far back as Marathon 1, this is the best level in the series. 2 floors, interconnected hallways, 3 layers, and exclusively filled with hunters and juggernauts. This is my ideal Marathon experience. I have no clue where I'm going, the map menu has so many lines that it's almost unhelpful, we can breathe, the friendly AI doesn't overpower the enemy, and the colors are cold grays. Our objective terminal is simple but gives us some new information. The Trizeme plummets, yawning, towards the sun's core, heart, and the fiery prison of the working Kakantur, doubt. The power grid activator is located here on the outer ring, which you must access in order to bring the station online. The grid needs the Yarrow, Farcast, pattern chips to function. The 4 have recovered one here, in the main hangar for the station, and are readying it for transport to the Kafia. These parentheticals seem to be synonyms, which means that working Kakantur means doubt. You're fighting doubt itself, as Tycho said, and it's been our doubts in Hangar 96 that led us to ruined versions of Imaxakar. What's interesting to note is that we have a translation of Yarrow now, Farcaster, literally a group which casted doubt far into the Lake of Fire, and whose only ship name is the Swift Hand of God. Inspiration and jealousy of the divinely blessed warrior Count Roland and his holy blade leads to the continuation of the hero, but we can go further. The will of angels is perpetuated through the Yarrow, and the will of God through our triune protagonist. This gives us a sort of hierarchy. The Yarrow, angels, knew about the paths and their outcomes. Think Durandal's final terminal before assimilation. The player, when fulfilling the role of the hero, could navigate the paths but not view their outcomes. It was only when the player fulfills the triune role that he can carve a new path. Anyways, most of this level's objective takes place in the right half of the map. Seeing as this is the part the failed paths block off, it makes sense. Our first Farcaster pattern chip is located on the second floor, next to our main shield recharger and pattern buffer. The second chip is a lot more annoying to reach unless you have a few rockets. One of the terminals in this room is a hexadecimal one from back in Niseed Mullis. This hexadecimal is a map file. By converting it, or downloading the file from Hamish Sinclair's website, we can enter Hangar 96. Of course, this is a huge reveal. The location which embodies our doubt is playable. Surely there's lore implications to this. Unfortunately, it's just an Easter egg teasing Double Ought's next game, which would never release. After grabbing and inserting the second Farcaster chip, we get our final terminal. You've done it. The Yarrow station is online, and we're wrapping the Nova in its containment fields. The creature, or creatures, Spoath fears are either dormant or a myth. We've seen nothing to account for his terror. The Svitker have routed the Four, capturing their flagship and forcing their High Admiral to flee the system. What little there is of it. The Svit are preparing to bid farewell to their beloved home forever, as the sun collapses in on itself and the lonely marshes fade into the deepening twilight. The newly chosen Olders of the remaining Svit are capturing as many of the Flictic creatures and other native life as is feasible before they must leave with Kalia. They are hopeful, though, and with our help will carve another paradise out of the void. To you, we are deeply grateful, and release what little hold we might, as Durandal have had on your soul. Go. The implication that the working Kakantur is a myth is extremely important. It's not that we just halted or contained it, but we've removed doubt itself from our path. Our means have been justified. Just like the first two, Marathon Infinity has a final screen as well. Unlike 1's, which sets up for the sequel, or 2's, which hastily tries to give a happily ever after, Infinity's ends with the actual end of the universe, as narrated by Durandal. We've watched while the stars burned out, and creation played in reverse. The universe freezing in half-light. Once I thought to escape, to end the end a master, step out of the path of collapse, escape would make us God. Yet I cannot help remember one enigma, a hybrid, elusive destroyer. This is the only mystery I have not solved, the only element unaccounted for. Even Spoath is no more. He saved his entire race, but in the end, frozen by despair, he joined the chaos he sought to evade. But you are dead 1,000 times. Hopeless encounters successfully won. A man long dead, grafted to machines your builders did not understand. You follow the path, fitting into an infinite pattern, yours to manipulate, to destroy and rebuild. Now in the quantum moment before the closure, when all become one moment left, one point of space and time. I know who you are. You are destiny. The mural, rather than a space diorama like the last two, depicts a seed sprouting into a rose, the petals turning to blood on the cave wall, covering our hand. The story is over, we've escaped, able to move seamlessly into the next. As for our meta-narrative, our infinite pattern to destroy and rebuild, this game released alongside Forge, the level editor. The game's name is Infinity because there's theoretically infinite levels so long as we, the ones able to forge our own paths, decide to make them. Randy Reddig of Double Ought, better known as Idnar, confirmed this ending justifies Durandal. You escaped, and escape made you God. By creating a trinity within the security officer, himself, the Yarrow AI, and Durandal, he's ascended above Yarrow. He's the god who the Yarrow serve. Since Marathon 1, we've been becoming the hero, specifically based on Roland, a warrior with blessed prowess. This is the key to Marathon's story. It's the idea that one can be inspired to be greater, and that inspiration requires conflict, both in creating the legends and in one's comparisons to legends, and perhaps both can be the same thing. It's a melancholy of seeing what you were, an anger to fix it, and jealousy reading the acts of those worth idolizing. In that sense, Marathon Infinity tells the story of a hero, one who has lost personal agency, in a pit of despair realizing he is still not good enough to leave existence better. If he cannot gain his victory, then all he did was slaughter and doom us all. In rage, he fights against this fate, and is blessed with a holy weapon, who is soon to be made like an angel in heaven, and who only got this far through his desire to be like God. This whole time, the security officer has had the same jealousy that Durandal had, jealous of the source of good rather than those who simply display it. However, despite their best efforts, Marathon Infinity was not the end. Just 4 years later, their publisher and progenitor studio, Bungie, would release a second sci-fi shooter with augmented super soldiers and AI named after Harufas's handiwork. It even has a theme of recursive events, like a wheel describing time.